Okay, welcome back everyone. Sawadee-krap. Nice to see you guys. Welcome back to class. Perhaps you had a really nice lunch, whatever you guys decided to do, whether you got some food or maybe you just worked and got some things done. We're going to continue to help you guys learn this path to enlightenment by helping you to understand meditation and focusing in on this. You guys have done meditation with me now at least 3 times if you've been in this course. We did this on the first day, yesterday morning. We did it yesterday afternoon, and then we did one this morning. But now I'm going to talk to you about what meditation is and all the ins and outs of it. And then by the time we're done, we'll actually do a meditation session together as well. But this is your opportunity to learn about all the meditation and how it fits into the Eightfold Path that you learned this morning. And just like always, if you guys have questions, you're more than welcome to ask those. Remember here, you can use the microphones, and all of you guys online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So first, let's start with some meditation basics. This will just kind of get you started out with understanding what it is that I'm teaching. So different people think about meditation in different ways. So one of the ways that I like to teach is I like to give a definition of what I'm talking about when I first start. Your definition of meditation may not be the same as this, but at least you'll know when I talk about meditation, what am I talking about? So meditation is a technique to actively train the mind during dedicated, independent, purposeful training sessions to eliminate unwholesome qualities of the mind and or cultivate wholesome qualities of the mind in the positions of seated, lying, standing, and walking. So it's a dedicated, active, purposeful training session. You're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. And you're doing this in the seated, lying, standing, and walking positions. And I'm going to introduce you to all those throughout this course, and today help you guys to understand these positions and how and why you might use these. Sometimes people think about meditation as like, I'm going to go for a drive and meditate, or I'm going to go walk the dog and meditate, or I'm going to go for a jog, exercise maybe and meditate, or I'm going to go do some gardening and meditate. This isn't actually meditation, even though somebody might be calling it that. If you're gardening, you're gardening, or if you're going for a walk with the dog, you're going for a walk with the dog. What you guys are going to hear me talk about is how it's important to have 2 or 3 meditation sessions per day for 30 minutes or more. If you thought you were meditating while you were walking the dog, and that's what you did, you wouldn't actually get to enlightenment by just walking the dog 2 or 3 times a day for 30 minutes or more. So you're going to need this dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the positions of seated, lying, standing, and walking. Okay? So these other things, while they might be beneficial for someone's life and they might enjoy doing those, they're not meditation. Then it's important for you to have a meditation teacher. Whether you consider somebody else your meditation teacher or you like to consider me your meditation teacher, it's up to you, but you're going to need a teacher. As you guys heard yesterday, there's only one kind of individual that would be able to get to enlightenment without the help of any teachers or any guides, and this would be an actual Buddha. And because you're not a Buddha, you're going to need teachers and guides to help you on the path. There's been individuals over the years that haven't used teachers and guides, and they ran into a lot of difficulties and challenges, and I'll just tell you one story so that you'll understand what I'm talking about here to illustrate a point for you. There was this individual several years ago who was trying to meditate on their own. They were watching YouTube videos, reading books, things like this, and they got into all kinds of problems. After 2 years, they were having suicidal thoughts, they were depressed. They were actually a doctor, they were a physician, and he couldn't work anymore. His relationships were falling apart. He had a fiance. He was sleeping 23 hours a day. Things were really going bad for him. And for one reason or another, he reached out and he contacted me and he explained to me what was going on, and I started helping him and guiding him along the path. And over time, I realized that this was such a big challenge that I invited him to Thailand, and I said, I can't help you online anymore. You're going to need to come to Thailand, and I'm going to need to help you from here. So he ended up traveling here, and he spent some time here, and I helped him while he was here. And then he ultimately went back to his home country, and ultimately over time, he got out of those situations. He didn't have suicidal thoughts anymore. He didn't have the deep sadness. He was able to get back to work. He wasn't sleeping 23 hours a day. He did lose his relationship with his fiance, but nonetheless, he at least got back into a healthy life again. And during this period of time, for about 4 years or so, his life was very miserable. And he would tell you the same thing, that it was very miserable. And the reason why is because he was trying to do this work of awakening the mind on his own without the help of any teachers or any guides. And he didn't have the wisdom of how to do this. He was trying to piece together books and videos and things like this. Nowadays, we're kind of in this self-service environment where we're kind of used to watching a YouTube video and then maybe going out and doing something. Because, if you're learning how to build a birdhouse or you're trying to build a dog house or something like this, you can watch that online and you can learn how to do that kind of stuff. But with something like getting to enlightenment, you're going to need teachers and guides to help you. Everything you've ever done has essentially been that way, whether it's learning English or learning some other skill or hobby or activity. You've had people that have helped you and taught you these things. So getting to enlightenment is really important to have a teacher or a guide. And whether you consider me to be that person or not is up to you. You can decide for yourself who you would like to be your teacher. You don't need to be in contact with me every single month or every single week or anything like that. If I don't hear from you for 5 or 10 years and you contact me and you say, hey, David, I need your help. I'm experiencing this in meditation. Can you help me? I'm here to help you. So don't feel like there's any expectation or requirement from you. But if you would like to reach out to me to get help, I'm always here to help you, because you're going to need that from time to time. And what you get back from me, if what you get back is, hey, that's completely normal, keep going, you're headed in the right direction, that can be reassuring to you and build confidence, and that'll help you to keep on going in your meditation practice. Because sometimes that's what you're going to get, that whatever you are experiencing, it's completely normal, but it's not normal to you. But someone who's done this work will tell you that, hey, that thing is normal, that you can just keep going. So you're going to need somebody to help you along the way, and you can't ask questions to a book. It's not possible. So you're going to need a real life teacher that understands you and that you can ask questions to. There's these 4 positions to meditate in, because the body can't be in the same position all the time. It's not possible. So you're going to need these 4 positions at different times: the seated, lying, standing, and walking positions. And I'm going to introduce you to these now and help you understand what they are and how I've used them. But then remember, you're not believing anything that I teach. You need to be able to practice these for yourself to see in what situations you would like to use these and how they're beneficial for you. So I'll teach you these and how I've used them, but then you use them for yourself and see in what situations they work best for you. So the seated position is kind of like the primary position that students will tend to learn in. This is like a primary position. And you're either sitting on the floor, in a chair, somebody might be on a bench or a wheelchair or something like this. And this is where a lot of people learn how to meditate, is in the seated position. And I've given you guys guidance on that, where you're sitting on the floor with your legs lightly crossed, right hand over left with the thumbs together. This is what the Buddha did. But there's other options here too, because it's not about everyone doing it the same way. You can put your hands on your thighs or your knees, your palms up. You can rest your hands comfortably in your lap. It's not about everyone doing it the same way. You can sit however you like. You like your upper body to be erect with the sternum up and the shoulders back, so it makes it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose, but it keeps your mind attentive and alert. This is the main thing, because you like your mind to be attentive and alert, because it's a dedicated, active, purposeful training session to eliminate unwholesome qualities and cultivate wholesome qualities. So in the seated position on the floor, you can be nice and comfortable, or in a chair, on a bench, or a wheelchair, or anything like that. You can sit however you're comfortable. There isn't just one fixed way to sit. So this is like the primary position that oftentimes people learn in. And I probably have done 80, maybe even 90% of the meditation I've done has been in the seated position. But then from time to time, you're going to notice that you're going to have challenges with the seated position. Maybe your body is having aches and pains, maybe your hips or your knees or your back or something like this. And this is where the lying position really comes in. This is really nice to have. What you do is you lie on the floor with your face up, and you just put your arms out to the side, and the entire body is relaxed. The muscles are all relaxed. So there's usually no pain in lying down, right? So this is a helpful meditation position to have. In yoga, they call this resting pose or corpse pose, or some people call it shavasana, if you've heard of these terms. These are all ways to describe the position that you're lying down on your back with your face up and all your muscles are relaxed. Okay, so this is really helpful if you're noticing aches and pains in the body, because it'll relax all the muscles and make it easy for you to meditate. But when you're doing the seated position or the lying position, one of the things you might notice is you have a tendency to fall asleep. This can be a thing that happens, right? You can kind of doze off. And if this is occurring, you have kind of two different options. One is you could change your position, or two, you could just get some sleep and get some rest. So if you'd like to use the standing position, this will help keep your mind more invigorated. You just stand up and you lightly clasp your wrist between your hands like this at your wrist, and then you could also put them beside you if you like, if that feels better, or you could clasp behind you if you would like to do it that way. And by standing up, it'll keep the mind attentive and alert, and you won't fall asleep. Or you could just kind of, go to sleep if that's what you would like. I've also used the standing position at times where I've maybe at a bus stop and I know this bus isn't coming for 15, 20 minutes and there's nowhere to sit down. I would just stand there and do some meditation. I wouldn't consider it one of my 2 to 3 meditations per day, because maybe I only got 5 minutes in or 8 minutes in or something like that. But it's like a little touch-up meditation. I've even done this like if you go to get your driver's license and you're waiting in line at the Department of Motor Vehicles and this line only moves every 10 minutes or so. I've stood there in line and done meditation before because I know this line isn't moving. I'm just standing there looking around, really not doing anything anyway. So I'll just do some meditation while I'm waiting in line. Again, not one of my 2 or 3, but it's like a little touch up, 5 minutes, 8 minutes here or there. This can be really helpful for you. Then there's walking meditation, which I'm going to teach you guys tomorrow. We're going to actually do it tomorrow. This is helpful, again, if you're falling asleep. You can switch to a walking position because you'll tend to not fall asleep in the walking position, although I've had some students that tell me they fall asleep in the walking position. So you could do walking meditation, and that will help you to stay more invigorated. But also where walking position is really helpful is if your mind is overactive and you have a lot of energy in your mind, and the last thing you're thinking about is being still somewhere, like the idea of sitting still. If you're just like, I can't do that right now, there's just too much energy in the mind. Walking meditation is really good for that. So I'm going to teach you guys walking meditation tomorrow, and I'll show you the ins and outs of that. We'll actually do it together. So we're going to talk about it more tomorrow. So you guys have any questions on these basic things about meditation? No questions? Okay. So now, starting in conducting a meditation session, we'll talk about the details of meditation. One of the first things to keep in mind when it comes to training your mind is that the mind is the boss, the body is the employee. What I mean by this is the mind is the one that's making all the decisions. The body is just following along with whatever's going on in the mind. But in order to get to the mind and train the mind, you've got to go through the employees. You can't just go walk into the boss's office. You're going to have to go through the employees in order to get to the boss. So you'd like the employee to be comfortable. If the employee's painful, they're not going to take you to go see the boss. Or if the employees are luxurious, they're not going to take you to go see the boss because they're complacent. So you'd like the body to be in the middle where it's nice and comfortable. So it'll go take you to go see the boss, right? So the mind is the boss, the body is the employee. The Buddha teaches in his meditation, when you look at the words of the Buddha, because we have his teachings of exactly how he taught meditation for breathing mindfulness meditation, he talks about setting up mindfulness in front of you before you start meditating. Mindfulness, you guys know what that is now. It's awareness of mind. You would like to have some awareness of mind before you enter into meditation. Whereas if you were to just walk into your house and plop down on the floor and start meditating, you don't have awareness of mind. So you might decide to go to the bathroom. You might decide to do a little bit of stretching. Some people like to do yoga before meditating. Some people like to chant. That's why I taught that to you guys yesterday. That brings some awareness of mind before you actually enter into meditation. You'd like to have some awareness of mind. You're not interested in just plopping down into meditation. So set up mindfulness or set up awareness of mind before you ease into meditation. In terms of your time, frequency, and schedule for meditation, you would ultimately like to build up to 2 or 3 sessions for 30 minutes or more. The Buddha meditated 3 times a day. You can see it in his teachings: morning, midday, and evening. There's not an exact time to meditate. If you set up for yourself to meditate at 8 a.m. every single day, are you going to be able to do that permanently for the rest of your life? Galit shaking your head no. Why? impermanence, right? The universal truth of impermanence tells you can't meditate at 8 a.m. every single day. It's literally impossible. I've been meditating before, and my son walks in the door and he comes into my room. He's like, "Dad, I need you to take me to school." I was like, "Oh yeah, really? I thought your mom was taking you to school today." He's like, "Yeah, me too. She's gone. I don't know where she's at." I was like, "All right, well, I guess I'm taking you to school today," right? So you never know what's going to pop up. And if you're attached to meditating at exactly the same time every day, you'll be frustrated in that situation. So I just broke from my meditation. I was only meditating maybe 3 to 5 minutes before he walked in. I just broke from my meditation, went and took him to school, and then I came back and I meditated afterwards, right? So you're not going to be able to meditate at exactly the same time every day. And if someone shares with you that you need to meditate at exactly the same time every day, this is someone who doesn't understand impermanence. They don't even understand the very first teaching of the Buddha. So this person isn't awake. They're not enlightened. So sometimes you might see people say, "Oh, you got to meditate at 3:30 a.m. every day." There's nothing special happening at 3:30 a.m. that's going to make your meditation any better or any worse. So you don't have to meditate at any specific time any given day. And remember, you're looking to get your practice back to as close to what the Buddha did as possible. And the Buddha didn't meditate at 3:30 a.m. every day. And you know how I know that? Because watches weren't even invented when he was alive 2,500 years ago. So he couldn't have meditated at precisely the same time every day because timepieces didn't exist back then. So that's why when you look in his teachings, it says that he meditated morning, midday, and evening. So basically, you like to have these anchor points somewhere in the morning when you wake up, right? After you wake up, somewhere in the morning. For me, that's somewhere between 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. I'm going to be meditating somewhere in there, right? And then in the evening, you'd probably like to have another anchor point, right? So if you normally go to sleep at 10 p.m., you'd probably like to be meditating around 9. Maybe 9:15 at the latest. You're not interested in being tired and sleepy by the time you start meditating. Because remember, it's a dedicated, active, purposeful training session. If you allow your mind to become sleepy and tired, and then you start meditating, your mind's not active at that point. So you can meditate at 9:15 if you normally go to sleep at 10, but that doesn't mean you couldn't meditate at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. because you can do it there too. But you just would like to do it so that you're not sleepy before you actually meditate. And then if you can get a midday meditation in somewhere, excellent. Right? But at least have those anchor points of morning and evening, because usually things are kind of quiet during that time frame and you can be meditating. You'll need to gradually build that up. So in terms of your time or frequency and your schedule, that's what you would like to pay attention to. You're not interested in meditating with an alarm, if possible. Sometimes people teach you to set an alarm and then meditate with that. But I'll share with you what's going to happen. One of two things are going to happen if you set an alarm. You're either going to be in meditation and your mind's going to be saying, "Is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet?" You're going to be craving, right? Or you're going to be deep in meditation, getting all kinds of benefit. Oh man, why did I set the alarm? I could have got much more benefit, right? So where possible, try not to set an alarm. Maybe that's like the evening and the weekends for you, because if you're on your way to work and you only have 20 minutes to meditate, you're going to probably need to set an alarm. But where you don't need to set an alarm, it's best to not have one. Just look at the time before you start, 9 a.m. Now you meditate. And then you're done. You look at the time again. 9:15. Okay, I'm meditating for 15 minutes. So that means I need to expand my time a little bit, right? So you just gradually work to expand it. So that's how you keep track of the time of how long you've been meditating. Even now, I check in about once a week to see how long I've been meditating for, because sometimes 5 minutes of meditation can seem like an hour, but sometimes like an hour can seem like 5 minutes. So you like to kind of check in about once a week to see how long you've been meditating for. So that way you'll kind of have a threshold and you'll kind of know what you're doing at any particular time. So this is your time, frequency, and schedule. As you heard me mention, sometimes you can get sleepy during meditation, especially when you first start meditating, because oftentimes your mind hasn't been sleeping well. Even if you're sleeping for 8 or 10 hours a day, you might not be getting very good quality sleep. So when your mind starts performing optimally and more when you're training it, it's almost like a dry sponge that you're finally giving your mind what it needed all these years. And you might notice you have a tendency to sleep even during the day where you didn't normally take naps. You might notice when you start meditating, you start needing to take naps or something like this. And I went through this period of time for a good 6 months to a year where I was sleeping quite a bit. Because my mind was so polluted and I was working so hard to be able to eliminate this, that I was putting a lot of burden on the mind to go through this. So you might notice that you go through a period of time where your mind starts being more interested to sleep. And this is like a dry sponge finally getting what it wants. And it's like, finally, I get to sleep, I get to rest, right? So don't be surprised if that occurs. If you're noticing sleepiness during meditation, either change your position or just get some sleep. There were times where I would sit down to meditate. I'd be 5 minutes into my meditation and dozing off, and I would just go to sleep. And then I'd wake up and I'd meditate then, right? And there were other times where I just changed position. So you can use these as options. You might notice physical sensations during meditation. What I mean by that is like tingling, like little itches and stuff like that. If you notice those little itches in the body, what you would like to try to do is elongate the amount of time before you actually scratch. Because if you're in meditation and you notice a scratch and you scratch it right away and you keep scratching things right away, this is the mind craving for permanent comfort. What you would like to be able to do is just focus on the breath. You know that there's an itch somewhere, but you're not going to scratch it. And you try to focus on your breath for as long as possible. And maybe you go 5 or 8 seconds without scratching, but then it's just such a strong urge, you need to scratch it. So go ahead and scratch it. But next time, try to go longer, like 10, 12 seconds, right? And then next time, go a little bit longer, until eventually you can go through the whole life cycle of that itch and you didn't actually have to scratch it. Where you can notice like, yep, there's the itch. Yep, it's starting to arise. It's fading, and there it's gone. Because that itch is impermanent, right? So you can watch that whole life cycle if you like. And you can get to the point where you're unaffected by this impermanence, because you're going to meet with impermanence all throughout your day. And if you can train your mind to not be affected by this impermanence, then you can train it to not be affected by other types of impermanence too. You might have visual stimulation during your meditation. What I mean by that is like some people see different colors like white or green or purple. You might have different images that come through your mind. This is all normal. Sometimes people contact me and they're like, I saw the color green. Does that mean I'm going to get rich? What does that mean? Or I saw the color purple. Does that mean my boyfriend or girlfriend's going to come back to me? What does that mean? I'll tell you what this is, okay? It doesn't mean any of that stuff, okay? You're not a special person. It's not just happening for you. This is happening for lots of different people. What's happening is when you're training the mind is non-physical. It's intangible. And then you've got this brain. The brain is something completely different than the mind. The brain is the physical organ, and the mind is non-physical. It's non-tangible. You can't point to it. You can't touch it. But the brain is physical. You can touch that. So when you're training the mind, it has an effect on the brain. And as the brain structures are changing, because this is happening, doctors are showing this to us. I even heard it occurring inside my skull, where you can hear these brain structures sometimes changing. The sight that you experience is happening inside the brain. The eyeball itself is just a lens that is bringing in light, but sight is happening inside the brain. So as the physical structures of the brain are changing due to you training your mind, you might actually see different colors or different images and things like this occurring. So this is very normal to experience during your meditation. So if you're noticing colors or other things like this is just the physical structures of your brain changing, and this is really healthy and really beneficial for you. Doctors are researching this, scientists and people like this, and they're noticing that when these physical structures are changing, it's very beneficial for the brain and for the human being. And once you get to a certain point of change with the brain, it never reverts back to the way it was. I used to walk around with a lot of pressure in my skull. I used to get migraine headaches, sometimes 3 to 4 or 5 times a week. I would even vomit sometimes. But after training my mind with the teachings of the Buddha, I don't have that anymore. I don't have pressure in the skull. I don't have migraine headaches. I don't vomit because of these things anymore. I don't experience any of that stuff. So you might notice things like this. I was meditating sometimes and I could hear it happening inside the mind. It was like, I could hear it actually physically changing. I could feel the pressure releasing out of the skull. So you might notice these kinds of things occurring for you as part of training the mind. It's happening in the brain, but it's from training of the mind. So this is something that you might experience. It's very normal. Then sometimes you're taught to meditate with external stimulus. What I mean by that is like meditation beads or candles or incense or different scents or music or things like this. If you've been doing this, that's where you are now. But what I would like to encourage you to do is move away from those things, because as long as your mind's holding on to these things, your mind is still holding on. There's still a craving, a desire, attachment there. So if you can only meditate when you have that special candle or that special phone app or something like that, that means when you're 3 days into the mountains of Chiang Mai on a great hike where you're trekking through the jungle, you can't actually meditate because you don't have that special candle with you, right? Or that special phone app or the special incense. You would like to get to the point where you only need 3 things to meditate. And you're going to have these 3 things with you all the time: the body, the mind, and the breath. These are the only 3 things that you need to meditate: the body, the mind, and the breath. And you're going to have these 3 things with you all the time till the end of this life, right? So if you can just base your practice off of meditating with the body, the mind, and the breath, then you can meditate anywhere, anytime. If you're walking through a park with your friends and you're like, wow, this is such a nice park, I'd really like to sit down and meditate. Oh, I don't have my special candle with me. Oh, I can't meditate here. I can't do that, right? You're like opted out. But if you can just meditate with the body, mind, and breath, it's like, sweet, this park is really nice. I'd like to sit down and meditate. Boom, go for it, right? You don't need to go home and get your special candle. You can meditate right there, right? So if you can start stripping these things out of your meditation practice, this will be really helpful for you. So if you're right now meditating with music or any of these other things, what I suggest you do is do this gradually. This is the way you eliminate things out of your life, because as you guys heard, the mind craves permanence. Another way to say that is that the mind does not like impermanence. When you start creating change in your life, your mind doesn't like it. So if you're used to meditating with music, if you just went cold turkey and stopped meditating with music, your mind's not going to like that. So what you would like to do is do like 1 session with music, 1 session without, right? 1 session with music, 1 session without. This is like a good way to train the mind. And then you do 1 session with it, 2 or 3 sessions without. 1 session with it, 2 or 3 sessions without. Maybe do that for a week or so. And now you do 1 session with it, 3 or 4 or 5 without. You just gradually move away from it like this to the point where your mind doesn't even notice it. You can do this with things like music. If you're smoking cigarettes or you're doing other things that you feel are unwise and you would like to eliminate, you can gradually move away from things this way. And your mind will appreciate it a lot more because it's not having to experience that significant impermanence. So you can gradually wind down unwholesome things that way, and you can gradually increase wholesome things that way. Whereas if you run out of here and you have the mindset that you're going to meditate 3 times a day for 30 minutes, it's not going to happen. I can tell you right now, it's very rare. Very few students have ever done that. You're most likely going to be meditating once or twice a day. You're going to be meditating maybe 10, 15 minutes a session. If you have the option of doing 1 meditation for 30 minutes or 2 for 15, what you're going to notice is the 2 for 15 is more beneficial. Frequency is more beneficial than duration. So if you have the option, go for the frequency. Go for your 2 meditations. And then that 15 minutes, just gradually expand it over time, that you're gradually expanding it little by little. Okay, so do you guys have any questions on any of these things? Yes, sir.
So in the beginning of meditation, if by not using an alarm clock, we hit only 15 minutes, should we go back into meditation to try and do it for the whole 30 minutes? Or
you could, if you like, and you have the time, you surely could. Also, but like say you're on your way to work, right? And you have to leave in the next 5 minutes or so. Then just go, and then next time, just try to expand it longer and work to get it longer and longer. Mm-hmm. Okay, let me check online.
Before the food or after food meal?
What you'll notice is that if you have an empty stomach, you'll tend to meditate better. But that's not to say you can't meditate when you've eaten food, because you surely can. But what you will notice is that without food in your stomach, your mind will tend to be more active and attentive. So that's why I usually wake up in the morning, I empty out the organs, and then I start meditating right away because the stomach's empty. And then in the evening, your food is already digested. So it's a good time to meditate there. Where when I eat, I tend to get sleepy and fall asleep. But you can meditate with food in your stomach. There's no harm there. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions online. Okay, so now let me share with you some words of the Buddha on meditation so you can see some of the things that he taught related to meditation. This is a discourse from him where before this, he was talking about these 5 things that he was suggesting for his students to be able to develop. And part of that was like association with wholesome persons and things like that. But then he says, having based himself on these 5 things, the 5 things he was talking about previously, the monk should develop further another 4 things. And this is where he lists out the 4 meditations that he teaches. These are the only 4 that the Buddha ever taught. You're going to see a whole litany of meditations out there in the world, but there's only 4 that he ever taught. This first one, he says, the perception of unattractiveness of the body should be developed to abandon lust. This is like if you have high sexual cravings or you have sensual desire where you're constantly, longing, yearning for sex, there's a meditation to help you work to eliminate that. And I teach that in Volume 1, Chapter 11. You can see how to do that. Oftentimes I'm teaching this privately with students. They'll come to me and let me know they need this. But there is a course that or a retreat that I actually teach this in, and I teach it in the book too. So you can always learn this if you'd like, but it's not something that everybody needs, okay? Then there's loving kindness should be developed to abandon ill will. This is a meditation to eliminate anger, hatred, ill will, and all the lesser versions like frustration, agitation, annoyance. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't even have the slightest dislike towards another being. Right now, you might have dislike towards certain people, and you might think it's them that's causing you to dislike them. But in reality, what it is, it's your expectations. It's your cravings. You're wanting this person to be a certain way, and when they don't match with your expectations, you might dislike them. So it's actually coming from your own mind. So you can eradicate that to the point where you can just love everybody and you can have harmonious relationships with everyone. And this loving kindness meditation is what will help you to do that. Then there's mindfulness of breathing should be developed to cut off thoughts. This is the breathing mindfulness meditation that you guys have been learning. It's training you to cut off and cut off and cut off. It's not training you to eliminate your thoughts. That's not the actual goal of this meditation. It's training you to gain control and discipline so that you notice when the mind is moved off the breath, and then you can train your mind to let it go and come back to the breath. So it's helping you to discipline the mind so that you can let go when the mind's craving and longing and yearning. Then there's this meditation to help you realize non-self. The perception of impermanence should be developed to eradicate the conceit, I am. When one perceives impermanence, the perception of non-self is stabilized. One who perceives non-self eradicates the conceit, I am, which is nibbana, or enlightenment, in this very life. So this is a meditation that I teach at other times. This retreat coming up in January, I teach that particular meditation because you need that in order to be able to get to the first stage of enlightenment. This retreat coming up in January, it's everything you need to get to the first stage of enlightenment. You won't be in the first stage of enlightenment after that retreat, but you'll have all the teachings you need to be able to get to that. So I teach this in that particular retreat. So these are the only 4 meditations that the Buddha taught. And if you're learning other things, oftentimes these other meditations are actually taking your mind in the opposite direction of enlightenment. So it's important to really focus on what the Buddha did because he discovered what it took to get to enlightenment. And these are the only 4 that you would ever need. The first 2 not the first 2, these 2 right here, loving kindness and breathing mindfulness, everybody's going to need those. So here what I've done is I've organized these in the order of importance. And this is what the Buddha did too. He ordered them this way. That breathing mindfulness meditation is the priority. That's why you're learning that in this particular course, because it's a foundational course. And here what I've done is I've listed the qualities that are unwholesome that you're eliminating from the mind and the wholesome qualities that you're cultivating. So the breathing mindfulness meditation, you're eliminating craving, desire, attachment, which is an unwholesome quality. That's the longing, yearning. And you're cultivating the wholesome qualities of mindfulness or awareness of mind and concentration. This is the goal of breathing mindfulness meditation. The instructions of breathing mindfulness meditation are very simple and very easy. You're just focused on the breath, and anytime the mind moves off the breath, you're cutting that off, letting it go, and bringing the mind back to the breath. But the real profound aspect of this meditation is in the qualities that you're developing that mindfulness or awareness of mind and the concentration, because now those are two qualities that you're going to be able to use in everyday life. So I was just teaching you guys the Eightfold Path and mental discipline, where you focus on the breath during meditation, and then when it moves off, you cut it off and let it go. In meditation, you're cutting off everything and anything that comes up during your meditation. But in daily life, you're only cutting off the unwholesome qualities. So this is like a professional athlete. If I was a pole vaulter, I was an Olympic pole vaulter, I'm going to go into the gym and I'm going to do weight training. I'm going to do cardiovascular training. I'm going to do agility training. And that looks a certain way. But then when I go out and do my sport, it looks completely different. I'm doing pole vaulting, right? Same thing when you're training your mind. When you're in meditation, you're cutting off anything and everything that's coming up. Even if it's wholesome or unwholesome, you're cutting it off because you're training your mind to let go. But then in day-to-day life, if something unwholesome comes up, yeah, you would like to cut that off and let it go. But if a wholesome thought comes up in day-to-day life, you don't have to cut that off, right? If you think about, hey, I'd like to take my mom out to lunch today, that's generosity. Take mom out to lunch, right? That'd be really wonderful for you. Or you're thinking about bringing in some snacks for the other students to be able to eat some snacks. Hey, go ahead and do that. Practice some generosity, right? You're not interested in cutting off the unwholesome things. So you're only you're not interested in cutting off the wholesome things. You're interested in cutting off the unwholesome thoughts that come up in the mind during day-to-day life. But in meditation, you're cutting off everything and anything that comes up because you're training in one way during meditation, and then you're applying those qualities in your day-to-day life through practicing mindfulness and concentration and cutting off any unwholesome things that come up. Okay, so we're going to talk about these others at different times. This class, we're going to be focused on this first one of breathing mindfulness meditation. So here's some more words from the Buddha on meditation. This is a phrase that he has in his teachings. He says, a pot without a stand is easy to tip over. A pot without a stand is easy to tip over. The pot is your mind. The stand is your meditation practice. A mind without a meditation practice is easy to become discontent. That's what he's saying, right? So when you're meditating, it's like making your stand wider and wider and wider. And now it becomes harder and harder to tip over your pot, to tip over your mind, because your mind's becoming more and more stable. So a mind without a meditation practice is easy to become discontent. That's what he's sharing. Here's another teaching. He says, monks, there is one thing that when developed and cultivated leads exclusively to liberation, to freedom from strong feelings, to elimination, to peace, to direct knowledge or experience, to enlightenment, to nibbana. What is that one thing? Mindfulness of breathing. Breathing mindfulness meditation. This is that one thing that, when developed and cultivated, leads exclusively to liberation, to freedom from strong feelings, to elimination, to peace, to direct knowledge, experience, to enlightenment, to nibbana. So he's not saying you only need one thing to get to enlightenment, because otherwise he would have just taught meditation and that's it. We wouldn't have had 45 volumes of books that are this thick, right? What he's saying is this meditation has one goal. This meditation's goal is to help you get to enlightenment. That's it. That's the only goal of this meditation, is to help you get to enlightenment. It's kind of like saying this car, it leads to transportation. That's what this car leads to, is it leads to transportation, right? But it's not that you only need a car in order to sustain your life. You need many other things to sustain your life. But this car that you have, it leads to one thing, which is transportation, right? So it's the same thing here, that this meditation has one goal, and that is to help you get to enlightenment. That's it. That's what this meditation's for. Okay, so here the Buddha's sharing the importance of this meditation, and the goal is to help you get to enlightenment. So the way that we do this meditation is you focus on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin, and you fixate your mind on that. And then whenever the mind moves off of that, you cut that off and let it go and bring your mind back to the breath. This is training your mind to have mindfulness in concentration, because you'll be aware that your mind moved off, and then you'll focus the mind on the breath. The goal of this meditation isn't to eliminate your thoughts. Sometimes people think that when they hear the instructions, because we're saying cut off the thoughts. They think that the goal is to eliminate your thoughts. As long as you're alive, you're going to have thoughts. You can't eliminate your thoughts. Even enlightened beings still have thoughts during meditation. But the difference is that in the unenlightened state, you'll have a bombardment of thoughts. It'll be like thought, 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 thought. Or you'll have a thought, and then you'll follow it for a while. You'll play with it. You'll look at it. You'll have fun with it. You'll indulge in it. And then like 2 or 3 minutes down the road, you're like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm meditating. Let me bring my mind back to the breath, right? The difference is that an enlightened being, when they're meditating and they're focused on the breath, when they have a thought, they know it right away, and they cut it off and let it go right away, and they bring it back to their breath. And then they go through a period of time where the mind's still and quieted. Maybe for 30 seconds or a minute or so, their mind's still and quiet. But then they're going to have another thought. They notice it right away, they cut it off, let it go, and they bring the mind right back to the breath. So your goal isn't to eliminate your thoughts. Your goal is to notice them sooner and sooner and cut them off and let them go easier and easier. That's what you would like to be able to do. Okay, so that's the ultimate goal of the meditation. All right. Now, the last thing I'll share, and I'll just open up the questions that you guys have, is as you're building your meditation practice, don't ever give up. The Buddha says, meditate, monks, do not be complacent, lest you regret it later. This is my instruction to you. So when you're feeling guilty and shameful, when you're sad and you're angry, or any other discontent feelings like stress and anxiety, you're going to regret having not meditated. That's what he's saying. This is the only time you're ever going to see the Buddha say, come on guys, let's do this, right? He's never going to push you. He's never going to try to force or control you to do anything. He's never putting guilt or shame into your mind in any way. He couldn't do that anyway, but he's not using guilt, shame, and fear in order to get you to eliminate guilt, shame, and fear, right? He's just kind of encouraging you and motivating you. He's saying, hey, meditate, students. Don't be complacent, or you're going to regret it later. This is my guidance and my instruction to you, right? So what I would say here, along with what the Buddha is sharing, is never give up. Because giving up on your meditation practice is basically like resigning yourself to experiencing anger and sadness and frustration and all those feelings for the rest of your life. This is the escape. This is the escape hatch. This is the door out of here in terms of getting away from these discontent feelings. And if you're like, give up on this, it's like resigning yourself to being angry and frustrated the rest of your life. So the Buddha is sharing with you, don't be complacent. Keep applying effort and energy. You'll go through periods of time where your meditation practice will go up and down because it's impermanent, but you can get right back into it. There was a period of time where I went almost 3 years without meditating. It was one of the worst 3 years of my life, but nonetheless, I got back into it, right? And I don't suggest you wait that long. If you've gone 2 or 3 days without meditating, get right back on it, right? Or if it's been a week or two, get right back on it, right? You're not interested in delaying that for that amount of time. So if you stay dedicated and diligent, slowly but surely, you're going to be able to make your way to enlightenment. Your enlightenment isn't going to be determined on whether you miss meditation today or not. If you miss meditation today, that's not going to determine whether you get to enlightenment or not. What's going to determine whether you get to enlightenment or not is if you miss meditation today, what do you do next? Does that become 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, 20 years that you haven't been meditating? If you can consistently meditate over the course of your life for several years, you'll make your way to enlightenment. So if you meditated twice a day, every single day, in a month, that would be about 60 times, right? But if you got 52 or 54 or 55, if you got this amount of meditation in a month, you're making your way to enlightenment. So you're going to miss a meditation here and there. It's normal, right? Because your meditation practice is impermanent. You don't have to put pressure on yourself to absolutely meet every single meditation. So if you miss some meditations here and there, okay, what do you do next? Because your enlightenment is not going to be determined on whether you missed meditation today or not. It's if you missed, what are you going to do next? Right? And now if you can consistently meditate for 3, 4, 5, 10 years, that's what's going to determine if you can get to enlightenment or not. Okay, so do you guys have any questions on any of this? Mr. Question over here? Yeah.
So in the basics part, it says that training the mind during dedicated independent. Does that mean that you have to meditate alone? Because I know like a lot of the monasteries meditate in group sessions.
Yeah, there's no harm in meditating in a group session, but you'd like about 80 or 90% of your meditation to be alone, because otherwise your mind's going to get attached meditating with other people. I've known people like that over the years, that they won't meditate unless they're with somebody else. And everybody in your life is impermanent. So if you can only meditate when you're with other people, this is an attachment. This is a craving. So about 80 or 90% of the time, you like to do it alone. What I meant by independent is, yes, doing it by yourself, but also independent meaning like you're not driving in meditating, right? Or you're not walking the dog in meditating. This isn't possible. But yeah, that's a great question. All your questions are great for all of you guys. Anything else? Yep.
So I'm meditating like I was in and out for several years, and the closest thing that I come to this is kind of like shapes and colors kind of appearing in front, like with closed eyes, right? It's kind of like appearing, and they're kind of changing. They don't have any meaning, so it's not possible to attach any meaning. They're just appearing and disappearing shapes. So I don't think it's even possible to cut that off, because it's not directing the thought, right? Just kind of appearing, going, disappearing, something else. So if I understand you correctly, that's okay. That's kind of like...
Yeah, these things are going to happen, and it's important to understand that they are impermanent. Because sometimes when people see these colors and these lights, they indulge in it, and it's like, oh my God, that's so beautiful, wow. And then they go through it for a period of time, for a few months, but then it doesn't happen anymore, and they're craving to get back to that time when they saw those beautiful colors in their meditation. So it's normal. All you got to do is cut it off. It will still happen, but just bring your mind back to the breath. Even when those colors are going on, just stay focused on the breath as best as you can. And then understand that this is impermanent, that you're not going to see those colors indefinitely, that eventually you'll get to the other side of this where all those structures of the brain have changed and you're not going to see those anymore.
Because it's also happening. So if I'm going back to the breath, right? It's like, as soon as I'm on the breath, either on sensation of the skin or whatever, right? I'm trying to focus there. Like at that point, it becomes again a shape. So it's like being unable to escape this pattern in some ways, and it calms the mind, right? Yeah. But it's still just whatever I turn, right? It's just like there is something, and it starts forming.
One of the things that this does for you is it shows you the power that the mind has. The mind is so creative and it has so much power, and it shows you that. It's like, oh my goodness, I had no idea that these things were even possible. So again, not that you've said this, but it's not special. You're not the only person that has experienced this. Many people experience this. It's not permanent, as you probably know, and just keep bringing your mind back to the breath and just keep on going. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So let me check online here, see if we have any questions. I don't see any questions anywhere online. So what I'll do then is invite you guys to do a meditation session together, because we've been meditating morning and afternoon. So if you guys would like to meditate, we'll do a meditation session together. Do you guys need a little bathroom break or something like that before meditation? No? If you guys need a bathroom break, feel free. Yeah, go ahead. We'll wait for you. We'll just take, a few minutes for people to use the restroom, get a drink, whatever it is you need to do, stretch your legs, and then we'll do meditation. You got a question? Yeah.
So, connecting to the theme before, the Eightfold Path, right? So the last one, right, that originally, as I understand from Pali Canon, ends with explaining the stages and the benefits of those 4 stages, or originally, right? Does it make sense to understand that the whole Eightfold Path was this intro into the whole philosophy, and it was ended in a way to seed the next teaching, to elicit the interest of the listener? It just kind of makes sense to structure in this way. I'm just thinking about this,
how the Buddha put this together, things like that. Yeah,
because probably he was extremely smart in delivering what he wanted to very normal people. So we're kind of coming close to the marketing philosophy that we now call it in some way.
I don't think of it in those terms, but the way I think about it is that he's taken human psychology and he's boiled it down into a common language that anybody and everybody can understand, right? And he's done that in a very simple approach and organized it very nicely so that we can see wisdom, moral conduct, mental discipline, and we can understand how all these things work together. But he wasn't trying to market it, right? Like, he's not trying to convince people to learn his teachings. He already got to peace. He already got to joy. So if people would like to learn, great. And if not, that's fine too. But it is this core central teaching that is needing to be learned and practiced in order to be able to get to enlightenment.
And I wasn't meaning like in negative sense of the word, more in terms of maybe igniting the interest in next steps.
A Buddha isn't going to form their teachings based on trying to elicit something from other people. The teachings that lead to enlightenment are the teachings that lead to enlightenment, right? He's not going to customize or cater his teachings towards trying to draw interest to his teachings, because he doesn't have a desire. He doesn't have a longing, yearning for other people to learn his teachings. It's just like, hey, this is what it took for me to get to enlightenment. If you're interested in learning that, here's what it is. So he's not catering his teachings in order to convince other people to learn them. He's just saying, here's what it took for me to get to enlightenment. If you'd like to learn that, great. If not, then that's fine too.
So from his own words, from his own writings, teachings, there is not a goal there that would kind of pop out, that he had the goal spreading this most efficiently. I don't know if if I put it in the right words, but you know what I'm trying to ask.
His goal was for his teachings to reach the entire world, but he knew that wouldn't happen during his lifetime. But the way that an enlightened being looks at a goal is very different than maybe you look at a goal. The way that a enlightened being looks at a goal is it's a goal, it's objective, it's an interest. It's something that you're working towards gradually, where the way that the unenlightened mind thinks about a goal is that it's actually a craving, desire, attachment. I want this thing, and I'm going to try to, get this thing, because if I get this thing, I will be happy. And now the mind pushes and pushes and pushes and pushes and caters and adjusts its decision making based on I want this thing. So that's not an actual goal. That's a craving, desire, attachment. That's the mind longing, yearning for something. And now I'm going to form my feelings on whether I get it or not. That's not an actual goal. That's a craving, desire, attachment. So when you understand what a real goal is, which the Buddha did have the goal for his teachings to reach the entire world, a goal is an objective or an interest that you gradually work towards, but you're not forming your feelings on whether you accomplish that thing or not. And he's not going to cater or adjust or modify what he's teaching in order to get 5 million people to learn his teachings. He's just going to say, hey, this is what it took for me to do this. And if you would like to learn that, here it is. And of course, his goal is for his teachings to reach the entire world, but he would just be wisely making decisions towards that goal and realizing that it wasn't going to happen during his lifetime.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, everyone's back from break. Okay, so if you guys would like to join for meditation, I'm going to do the same thing where we're easing into meditation with the chanting. And then when we get into meditation, I'm going to give you guys some guidance. Then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet. Then we're going to come out of the meditation with the chanting. And as you guys have probably noticed, I'm gradually making these meditations a little bit longer, a little bit longer, a little bit longer, helping you guys build up your practice so that by the end of the class, you will actually be meditating for 30 minutes. Whether you continue to do that or not is a choice for you to make. But if you meditate with me here, I'm gradually building you up to a 30-minute session. So the first day we did meditation, it was like fairly short. And then each session, I'm making it a little bit longer and a little bit longer. Okay. So we'll ease in with the chanting and then I'll come back in with the guidance. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Bhutang Mahakawanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso mahakava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusranam Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in naturally through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Mahakavanang Abhivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vichacharanang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusarang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Okay. So yet another wonderful day together, learning the teachings of the Buddha, headed towards enlightenment. Good job. So tomorrow we're going to start things off again with meditation, the way we do each morning. And then afterwards, I'm going to move into a talk on the three poisons, the three unwholesome roots, the three fires. This is craving, anger, and ignorance. This is going to broaden your understanding and deepen your understanding of what is going on in the unenlightened mind. Because today you guys learned about craving, desire, attachment. But tomorrow we're going to learn about something deeper. And we're going to talk about more solutions too. And then we're going to be learning the 5 precepts, which plug into the Eightfold Path, which gives you more details on that moral conduct section. And then in the afternoon, we're going to learn walking meditation. So this is our plan for tomorrow. Okay, so have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. Take care. And perhaps we'll see you tomorrow. Sawadee Kap. Sawadee Kap.